Good afternoon, everyone joining live. If anyone is joining live, and if you are joining through the replay, welcome. I'm Nancy Berger. This is my Ask Nancy live stream that runs every other Tuesday. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes I don't. I like to talk about different things that you may be challenged by, communication issues or leadership issues. Well, today I'm excited to have with me my friend and colleague, Julia Geisman, who I met through channels here in Boston. Julia is an expert in the inclusion space and guides companies and teams to up their game when it comes to inclusion. Today, we're going to talk about the topic of imposter syndrome, which Julia has given many talks on, and we have talked about it together. So welcome, Julia.
I'm so excited to be here, Nancy. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just want to add a little bit to, imposter syndrome seems like tangential from inclusion, but actually it's not. And it really it's part of the continuum of inclusion. As you mentioned, inclusion is my jam.
Yeah.
And it shows up in every part of life.
Right. There's so many facets of it.
So many facets, because the issue is when we exclude things, possibilities, professionally, when we exclude ideas, people, opportunities, it eclipses success in the business world. But it is equally so for human beings. For us individually.
Yes.
Because by excluding people, and opportunities, particularly opportunities that take us out of our comfort zone, it is like profound. It has a profound impact on us on multiple levels. One of which is it robs us of memories.
Yes.
Which
experiences and discoveries and so many things. It's counterintuitive, actually. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah, I know. But here's the irony that when you try something outside your comfort zone and you like it, then it falls into the category of FOMO. It's so strange, because you liked it and now you don't want to be left out.
Right. But it's a perfect example of how the logical brain isn't, the logical brain and kind of the limbic system of the brain are very different pathways. And we often act from our limbic system and it doesn't really make sense, but it's just, we're human and we're messy and that's what we do.
Yeah, we're human and messy. And that's the irony of our brain.
Yeah.
But the big thing, and this ties into the topic of imposter syndrome, the big thing is to recognize when you're being hijacked by it.
Yes.
Where the limbic brain, which has been programmed by external influences, dictates or controls our life.
Yes.
So, because as I was thinking about imposter syndrome way back, the fact is we do have those moments of self-doubt. And I'm more inclined to call it self-doubt. Because, when I was developing the program, I came across something that really was startling to me, which were the two women who were clinical psychologists coined the phrase imposter phenomenon.
Yes.
And then in the 70s, it morphed into imposter syndrome. Well, words are powerful.
Yeah, they are.
They are absolutely powerful. And so if you talk about syndrome, now you're talking about an illness and something that is persistent.
Mm-hmm.
But when you talk about a phenomenon, it really is it's a unique event. Right. And when we talk about somebody who's a phenomenon, that person is rare.
They're exactly
rare. And they bring such interest. And they're recognized for their rarity.
Yeah. Well,
so I just think that we need to, and this is the craziness of our brain. Because words are powerful, we just have to reframe things.
You have to reframe them. Choose different thoughts. Choose
exactly.
different thoughts.
Exactly.
And notice when you're getting hijacked and say and label it. Oh, I'm doing that thing I do. that's happening right now. I'm going to press the pause button on that. I'm going to reframe that. I'm going to pivot from this, whatever it is, whatever works for you. But so as it relates to imposter syndrome, which is, a layered thing, right? It comes from a lot of different places potentially. But let's kind of like triangulate a little and maybe give our audience some actionable strategies for shifting out of it. What is one of your favorite strategies that you teach clients when they feel that coming on?
The red lizard.
Yeah, so tell us about the red. I love the red lizard. Tell us about it.
So this came out of a book I read by C.S. Lewis. Anyway, there is this red lizard that sits on our shoulders, mine too, and it's constantly trash talking. It may also inappropriately praise you. So this red lizard, because it seems to dominate our lives, is really problematic. So when you start feeling negative about yourself and self-limiting and the red lizard is taking over. Now, the reason why I like that analogy is because the red lizard is external to us. The red lizard is the voice of all the ridiculousness that we have been told from the time we took our first breath.
Yeah. Because
all we really are the messages that we have been fed throughout our entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than owning it, all the crap, basically, let the red, put it off on the red lizard. So I talk about the red lizard, and then there is this exercise about that I call flick the red lizard. And I know it's crazy. No. And it makes people feel stupid, but it is literally, because physically you actually go through some action. So here it is. Yep. Red lizard. Okay. I tell you, I know it. I have it too. And I say, okay, let's say the red lizard says to me, what do you think you're doing? You can't do that. And then it's almost like the devil and the angel. What do you mean I can't do that? That's you. And then the red lizard said, because you're an idiot. And with more energy, I'm not an idiot. And then the red lizard becomes more aggressive in the message. Yes, you are. And I say, or it could be role played. I said, absolutely not. Flick, flick.
Right.
So there's that physical action as well as the conversation.
You're also crossing your meridian.
The midpoint. Yeah, exactly. And powerful. That changes the mindset.
Yes. That's and it's another form. It's one of the many reframing exercises. It could be you just label it and say, that's my whatever.
I wouldn't even say that's my red lizard. I would just say it's the red lizard. It's the red lizard. Shut up.
Right. It's the judge. It's the whatever it is, and you just ask it to leave. So right. Now, when you say it, I wanted to build on something you said, that we are really the combination of all the messaging that we have received. So another strategy that I like to teach is identifying the fear. Sounds pretty simple, but it isn't always easy. So actually identifying and writing down, so you light up the other part of your brain, writing down what you're afraid of, and then kind of like pulling the string a little to get to that catastrophe place that you're imagining that isn't really all that likely. So it's you have imposter syndrome because you were asked to participate in a new project at work and you feel like it's above your grade. Well, what makes you think that? That forces us to get back into fact and fiction. What makes you think that? Have you done this before? Do you have the skill? Do you have the training? Does your manager believe you can do it? All these things. And then very often when we do that, we realize that the facts are behind us, and the fictional narrative we've created is where the problems are. So that could be a nice adjunct to the red lizard exercise.
No question. And the other thing I would add to that is understand that if somebody approaches you to do something, to take on a new project, they fundamentally believe that you can do it.
Right.
And to honor their opinion of you. For example, I mean, women, people in general, but women particularly are so squirrely about taking on stretch assignments. Well, why do you think they call it a stretch assignment? If you know everything associated with executing that assignment, then it's not a stretch.
Right.
And so anybody who offers that to you knows that you're going to learn. It's a learning process for you, and it's a fabulous opportunity.
Of course, it's an opportunity.
Yeah. It's an opportunity.
And it requires a growth mindset. So that fixed mindset gets you in that rigid black and white, succeed or don't succeed. But I say in the stretch project, if it all goes smoothly and there's no hitches, you haven't learned anything.
That's right. Exactly. And, the other thing that I will say to people, and I say this all the time, you will fail. You're not a failure, right, but you will fail.
Right.
And failing is honorable because it means that you have gone outside your comfort zone and you've attempted to do something and it didn't work. So then the question is, how do you turn that into a positive, which is, oh, it didn't work. What did I learn from this?
Exactly. It's a version. It's not a failure. It's a version of it.
Yeah. So I do want to say one thing about the red lizard. One other thing. Typically what I ask people to do is before we go into flick the red lizard, I ask them to identify areas in which they feel absolutely confident. And when I say confident, I mean arrogant. I don't mean arrogant. What I mean is it's as if you are telling somebody you know how to tie your shoes.
Yeah.
I know how to tie my shoes. It's not arrogant. It's just a statement of fact. And so to record those areas that it's a statement of fact about their capabilities.
Right. Facts. I love
facts. And that way it helps women particularly to feel more comfortable in letting people know the value that they bring.
Yes. And the vulnerability piece is real. I don't know. There's an undercurrent. There has to be this of this assumption that, well, we don't want to show that we may not know, what we're doing, because then we will be identified by that and it will undermine the whole thing, which is just patently untrue. Like if you show vulnerability and you enlist the help of others that may have complementary skill sets or may be able to support, you are a leader and you will appear as a leader and you will actually build trust rather than, perpetuate more of this. Well, I can't look weak. There's nothing weak about it.
No, actually it takes strength.
It takes strength.
But, the other thing that I find interesting as you were talking is there are, again, competing things going on here. One is, as women, particularly little girls, we were taught to be perfect. So, I remember I was, my mother was a stickler about looking perfect. But anyway, I was shoveling the driveway one year. I don't know if I was in junior high school or probably junior high school. We had this huge turnaround area and I'm shoveling away and it's cold. And my mother pulled in and she said, "Oh, you've got a runny nose. I've never seen you with a runny nose." And I was saying, yeah, because I've always been in pinafores. And oh, by the way, it's really cold. I don't have Kleenex. I can't wipe my nose. Yeah, my nose is running. It's like, what? What do you expect?
But that's
the message.
That's the early imprinting. That's
exactly
what we take with us. And then we think somehow, Julia, that as we age, it dissipates. It
Oh, no.
evaporates. It goes away. It does not go away. It does not go away. And then people feel that by addressing it, they're playing a blame game or trying to cop out of that. No, you are trying to understand your own wiring, your imprinting, your modeling, all the things that have affected you and continue to affect you, by the way, in workplace and relationships and everything. So why not understand it? Right? You read labels at the grocery store when you want to know what you're putting in your body. So understand your own wiring by going back to those early life experiences. Then you can connect a lot of dots. And a lot of those dots, I can guarantee you, end in imposter syndrome.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I was talking to somebody recently, and I can't remember who it was, but I was talking about, why do people challenge themselves to climb Mount Everest? It's like, why? Why? Is it courageous? Is it because you're conquering the unconquerable? I don't think so, because the thing that takes the most courage is to look inside and deal with those issues that limit us, that separate us from other people.
Mm-hmm. And make us unique and differentiate us in a pot. Yeah.
It takes far more courage to do that and to acknowledge our vulnerabilities.
I think it takes a lot of courage to climb Mount Everest, just saying.
Well,
but
yeah, I know it does.
It's a different manifestation of whatever, but yeah. And I think it's very hard. And sometimes to unpack your own experience. And I know, because I've done it. It is extremely difficult, but there's so much goodness in it because you understand why you do the things you do, or why even you automatically think the things you think. And then you can say, back to earlier, how we started this conversation. Oh, there it is. It's doing what it does. And I'm going to invite it to leave. And it takes practice, just like piano, language, driving, all the things. This is a practice that if you instill it as part of your life, you change your thoughts. And by the way, we haven't even talked about like personal relationships, like if you're starting a new relationship with a friend or a partner or whatever, all the things. Oh, well, maybe it's not going to work, or I'm not this enough, or I'm not that enough, or I'm not enough, period. And these strategies we're talking about work no matter what the angle of your life that you're dealing with.
Yeah, sometimes you don't want to really show the warts, so to speak, early on in a relationship because you think that person. I fall prey to this a lot. If I really am full out who I am, because I'm very intense at times because I'm always asking questions. I'm always
I know. I've noticed this about you, Julia.
Yeah. I can try to hide it, but then I'm separating myself from myself.
Right.
But and I have all my messiness too. And I try to hide the messiness. Oh, I'm so together. I don't think so. But, if it's not going to work, you might as well find out early on and cut the losses. I was in a relationship for 3 years, but I also made a conscious decision that after about 3 months, everything changes in 3 months. Have you ever noticed that? 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. It's just crazy. But anyway, I just made a decision. This is who I am, and I have my stuff, and I'm working through it. But this is who I am. Well, 3 years later, it was like, yeah, okay. And you were not exactly honest about how you dealt with this. And I have certain words for that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's the human experience. And by the way, for anybody watching, this applies in your parenting as well. As a parent, showing vulnerability, showing your human side, making mistakes, owning the mistakes, teaching. This is modeling for your children how to do relationship with yourself and with others. And you can heal, what has perpetuated up until then in the bloodlines. Like, we all do the work on our stuff, unpack our own issues, understand our wiring. we don't blame parents. Parents did the best they could at the time. And then you move forward, but you don't perpetuate those same things, because that's what parents will do if they don't check themselves and notice the red lizard or whatever it is. Right. So this imposter syndrome, it's like a topic, but it is so far reaching, and it has so many different little like teeth,
right?
Right? You can get
yeah.
to.
So I also want to go back to that for a moment. You've said a lot of things that triggered a lot of thinking in me, but let me go back to the imposter syndrome, which is kind of the essence of what we're talking about. The expression "fake it till you make it." Yeah. Some people really say, "Ugh, not okay." But I was listening to something on NPR about with cognitive therapy, that sometimes you just have to go through the motions in order for that to be integrated. So I say that if you're in a situation where you don't feel totally comfortable, first of all, fake it till you make it, because number one, people probably don't know. But number two, you're actually practicing something. So in order to gain a skill or a capability or insight, you kind of have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to understand that you're probably faking it a little bit until it becomes an integrated behavior. I mean, I am terribly afraid of heights. It's like, acrophobia. I can't even look out the window in a high rise easily. But I was at outdoor events, and one of the exercises they put us through was to climb up a pole that was like probably 15 feet high. We were harnessed in and hoist ourselves up on a disc that was about this big, the size of a large pizza. And I'm like, I was really having a tough time. But I kept saying to myself, you can do it. You can do it. And you can do it. And I got up there successfully. Yes, I did it. Would I do it again? It would be a hell of a lot easier.
Right.
But it was like knowing you can do it one step at a time.
So that's what you're talking about is like exposure therapy. When you have a deeply rooted fear, exposing gradually and in a safe environment to that fear. And it also applies to what you also said was, skills or capabilities, even thought processes. So it's fake it till you make it is it's a little antiquated, but we get the idea. It's that you can create a neural pathway by thinking the thing and visualizing the thing. So we might even call them visualizations. And there was a really interesting study done with basketball players and free throw shooting. And the control group, two groups. One group practiced free throws for a year with the goal of increasing the success rate by 25%. The control group visualized
Was that the experimental group or the control group? The
experimental group.
Okay.
It visualized making free throw shots with the goal of improving their percentages. And after a year, both groups improved by almost the same percentage. It's incredible, the human brain, what we're capable of doing if we want to,
or not doing. Yeah. So the other thing that I talk to people in the workshop on, it's called "Think You Suffer from Imposter Syndrome? Think Again." In that process, I also say, look, you're given a situation. Like, for example, ask me to bake a cake. Okay, that is not anything I do well. And it's like, really? And you want it to look like it came out of the bakery? I don't think so. But anyway, I would say, okay, fine. Okay, this is a very mundane experience, but okay, fine. Because number one, I know how to read. I know how to follow recipes. I understand measuring utensils, and there's YouTube.
Right.
So, and I know how to access YouTube. So when somebody offers you something that is outside of your wheelhouse, remember those things that you do well, that you're solid in, and draw upon those experiences.
Julia, you're not, yes, we just had somebody comment. This is just so great. Cheryl, yes, you get good at something by doing your best at whatever level you are at the moment.
Exactly.
Exactly what you just said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can always draw upon former experiences and knowledge and skill. And if, now this goes back to what you were saying, if you are self-aware, you know what you can do. And if you're willing to own what you do,
yeah, that's
the kicker.
Yeah.
Is really owning. If you don't own what your capabilities are, you have to, you're going to have a limited life.
Well, and for like imposter syndrome, what we do is we take ourselves right down a rabbit hole, right? Because we think, oh, well, this might not go well. And then it's all bad. It's like bad. It's like we just get in such a rigid mindset that we just lose, the bottom drops out. And that's such a shame because it's so iterative, all these things, like what Cheryl said and what you're saying, you recognize what you can do well, you embrace it, you build on that. But once you start, going down the rabbit hole, then it can become a really harsh experience and you're just, you're undermining yourself. So
there's this dude, he's dead now. He was a German philosopher called Hegel. And I don't know if anybody is familiar. This may get a little bit heady, but basically I thought of it as you were just talking. It's a really interesting metaphor because he uses the notion of you start off with a thesis and then something comes along, the antithesis, which disrupts the status quo, which is a thesis. And out of that comes a synthesis. Thank you. Which then, interestingly enough, becomes the thesis. So when you think about that in human development, we start out one way.
Yeah.
Thinking one way. And then something comes along and disrupts that thought pattern. Now, what do we do with that? Do we just stay stuck? Or do we understand that challenging or difference, this goes back to inclusion, that difference, when you look at it carefully, it actually produces a larger outcome.
It's like the change model in organizational psychology.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Somebody, a very wise man said once, 1 and 1 really isn't 2, it's 11.
That's awesome.
Right.
That's a great way to wind down our discussion. We could talk about it forever, but Julia, before we sign off, I want you to please tell people how they can find you.
Oh, thank you. So email me at Julia, Julia, it's the at the end of Julie, Julia.Geisman, as written below, Geisman, at career, CAREER dash, make sure you get that dash in there, agility, AGILITY.com. Awesome. There's a plethora of workshops that I offer in addition to an assessment of workplaces vis-a-vis inclusion. Those workshops are all designed to ensure that people have a voice and are respected and take their rightful place in the conversation and game. It's either on an individual basis, like the imposter syndrome was really designed to help those people who suffer from it, yes, to capture their voice, to have their voice in a loud and clear, and to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. And then there are a lot of other. You were talking about a mindset. What is an inclusive mindset?
Right.
And what all the behaviors behind that, which everybody knows that those behaviors anyway. So again, get in touch with me at julia.geisman@career-agility.com. And I would love to explore possibilities and see what we can cook up together.
Yes, Julia does a lot of great work, and I'm so grateful you were here today. This is a topic that I will continue to cover here because there's so many angles of it. But thank you so much for joining. And everyone who's watching, thank you for joining us on Ask Nancy. Please come back, send questions if they occur to you before the next one in a couple weeks, or just reach out to me at explore@nancyrberger.com with any insights or feedback you'd like to give. Thanks again, everyone, and thank you, Julia.
And thank you, Nancy. Really appreciate it.